Okay, we had a question in the white toner group on Facebook, and I wanted to show everybody how to knock a white background out using a few steps. It's more of a strategy than it is, a super quick solution. So let's go ahead and get started. What I'm going to do is duplicate the layer that I'm working with here, just so I have a backup, and turn off the backup. You can lock it if you want to. And basically what I'm going to do is I just want to build a silhouette so that I can create a mask and then mask the original artwork. I will say this right now, looking at all these little speckles, I wouldn't even waste my time trying to hold on to this stuff. I would try to remove as much of it as possible beforehand, and then add it in later. This is so easy to recreate with a little brush, with some scattering. I think that's better to do after you've pulled the portrait off the white background. So let's go ahead and start with that first. I'm going to create a new layer, and then with the lasso tool, I'm going to kind of come in and trace this out the best I can. There's plenty of tools that you can use. As long as you have the lasso and you click it into add mode, you can just kind of keep adding to these shapes. And we just kind of want to get around all the objects that we want to keep and create a lasso shape so we can remove as much of this as we can. Okay, now that I have all the edges selected, I'm just going to come up to Edit, Fill, and I'm going to fill it with white. I'll make sure the custom color set, hit Apply. So now I have a separate layer here. Going ahead, deselect. So I'm going to grab both of them, holding Control and clicking on both the layers, hit Control G to group them, and then I'm going to rasterize. Okay, the next step that I'm going to do is I need to get rid of all this color. And the way I want to get rid of it is by turning it all black. So I'm going to go to the adjustment layers, go to selective color, and I'm going to turn off relative because I want this to be absolute. And then with each one of these color channels, minus a few down here at the bottom, the grayscale stuff, all the color channels, I want to tell them to go max black by dragging their black adjustment bar here into black. Okay, when I get to the white, I want to make sure the white is white. I want to take all the neutrals, which are, the intermittent stuff between white and black, and tell it to go black. And then the blacks, I want to make sure, are black. Okay, that's pretty good. And then what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to grab these two, group them together. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do some levels. I'll take levels, drag it into my little group here. I'm going to take the black, bump the black up until I get rid of a lot of that stuff. I mean, we're going to go pretty far. We just want to make sure we're not losing any edges. You can see some of the noise that's out there. Actually, we'll want to be careful over here. Let me back that up because I want to make sure. Yeah, this might be a trouble at edge. We might have to come back and visit it. I actually should have inside here. I totally forgot. So let's go ahead and do that real fast. And this way, I'm going to turn on the original artwork. And I'm going to use the pen tool. So I'm going to start here with the pen tool, and I'm going to click my first node, click to my second one, and hold and drag. And continue that same thing here to create a shape. I'm actually just going to cut this stuff out. If you don't know how to use the pen tool, I have other tutorials. They're Illustrator, but it's the exact same behavior. And then now that I have that shape completed, I'm going to come in here, fill it with white, and turn the stroke off black. I don't need that. And it's actually nested inside this layer, which is fine. We'll keep it in there. Because if I turn it on, you'll see that shape's in there. While I'm doing that, I'm actually going to do this outside shape too. So let's go ahead and come in here, create this shape here. Right now I'm holding Control while I have the pen tool active. It turns it into this direct selection tool. And then I'll just come back out over the shoulder And it doesn't need to be perfect over here. Come back in, make sure my fill's set to white, because it's nested inside the group, and then when I turn this back on, you'll see I've kind of outlined that shape. So let's get back to levels. Now I don't have to worry about this edge over here. We can bump these blacks up. Get them as close as we want. That's good. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is add a new pixel layer. And in here, I mean, we basically could use the same pen tool, but let's just go ahead and show you another tool. Use the lasso tool again. I've got it in freehand mode, and then we just kind of want to circle this stuff on the inside and make sure it's set to add mode by clicking add, and just get everything selected on the interior here. And some of the small stuff I'm not going to worry about because I'm going to show you what we're going to do with it. So come in here, go inside this butterfly. So you could also create this pixel layer, and if you've got a Wacom tablet, paint all this stuff in. I just figured I'd use these tools to show you that you don't need a Wacom tablet to do it. So you'll see I'm leaving some of the small stuff behind because the strategy that I'm using here is I'm actually going to apply a blur after this, which is going to create some of these grayscale tones that we'll be able to use a levels adjustment to pull away, like we did the initial levels. So we'll look inside here, and there's a whole lot of mess once we zoom in because the anti-aliasing's kind of kicking in and helping that basically blurs the harshness of pixels. And that there. Okay, so next step. We already have the pixel layer. Head over to Fill, and that's in the Edit menu. Fill, and then we'll just change it to black. Whoops. There we go. Hit Apply. I can deselect, and now we've basically created a really nice silhouette. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the group, head over to Live Filters, add a Gaussian blur, and then blur. And I just want to kind of soften up my edges, basically. So we'll go about that much. Looks about 12 pixels. Quite a bit. Maybe we don't need as much. Let's do 7. Okay, that's going to be the beginnings of our mask. Actually, one last thing that we need to do is add an invert. So you can head over to Adjustments and hit an invert. Make sure you just drag it into the group. So now we're basically perfectly set up to create a mask, but I'm going to keep this just in case. Do a duplication, turn that one off, go back to this one here, and then go to Layer, Rasterize, into Mask. And you'll see the magic happen. So it's almost there. We're getting close. But you can see the checkered transparency background. What I want to do is I'm going to create a new layer. It's going to be a fill layer, and I'm going to make it black because we're printing on a black shirt. We want to see the preview. So I'm going to drag that layer down. And if we go below the mask, you'll see the mask is working on that as well. So what I need to do is click the original artwork, hold Control, click the mask layer, and then I'm going to hit either the folder, you can click on it, or hit Control G. That will group. And then the mask can only affect what's in the group. So now you can see we've got this hazy white background, and that's because we blurred before we created the mask. And the reason why is now we can kind of control how much of that edge we want. And the way we're going to do it is with levels. So I'm going to hit Control L to add in levels. And I'm going to drag it and clip it on top of the thumbnail. And you'll see that blue highlight mark to the right of the thumbnail for the mask layer. And release. And now it's clipped to that. And it's only going to affect that. So while the dialog's open, I'm going to change its mode to alpha. And then alpha, we know our mask, you can see here in the thumbnail, the outside is black, so I want to adjust my black by increasing it. And you can see, slowly, we're going to remove that edge. We can go a little too far, as you can see. And I might touch the white just a little bit to keep some of that in, but we want to make sure it's not blurring at all. So let's keep going. Whoops, that's a little too much. And I'm not going to worry too much because it is a black line. It's going on a black shirt. We actually don't need that anyways. And that's pretty good there. All right, so that, for the most part, you can see has gotten us the silhouette that we need, and it's kind of done a little bit of knockout black. Now, you're probably not happy with this edge down here. We can easily fix that if we go click on the thumbnail of the mask. Like I said, this is a strategy. It's not perfect. I'm going to click on my brush tool. I'm going to select a very soft edged brush. Make sure my flow is kind of high. Scale it up, and you'll see this edge right here. It's giving me a preview of what's going to happen when I paint. And it's probably not going to be the softest transition. But that's okay, because in all honesty, with the white toner, we need to have a hard edge. So I'm just going to kind of paint out this edge. And, have the shape that I want it to be. Okay, that's pretty good. So at this point, let me turn this off. I could honestly rasterize this if I want, or just duplicate so I can save it later. But I'm going to go ahead and rasterize. And you can do that by going to Layer and heading down to Rasterize. But I have a shortcut key. It's a custom one. I'm not going to tell you because yours is going to be different. Okay, so now that we have that edge pretty much knocked out, I'm going to turn on this black background. Now you're also going to notice something. We want to make sure in this artwork that that black is a black. So that's the first thing that we want to do, because I'm going to try to knock this black out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring up levels, and I'm going to pull this black in, and I'm going to clip it to this layer. So I'm going to pull the black until I get them to meet. And that's pretty much there. I might go just a little bit more. And just in case I lost any of the tones, I'm going to pull the gamma to lighten everything up. Maybe bump the white just a tiny bit. Come back and check. Pull this black in a little bit more, and that's good. So I'm going to make sure that stays by rasterize. I'm going to duplicate. And let's go ahead and knock this black out. So now what we're going to want to do is, with that layer selected, I'm going to head over to, I believe it's in Layer, and hit Invert. And you can see I have my own custom shortcut for this. This one is the destructive invert. You can do it through a layer adjustment, but I'm not going to worry about that. And then now that that's inverted, let's head over to Filters, Colors, Erase White Paper. And now that that paper's been erased, all the white, I'm going to go back to Layer and invert it back. So as you can see, the strategy is basically get your blacks the blackest black they can be, and then once they're black, invert it so that they become white. Erase the white paper, and then invert it back, and you've basically erased all the black. You've done a knockout black. If I turn it on the black background, you'll see it's pretty darn good. So now you've got stuff like this. This is kind of up to you how you want to manage the edges. Like I said, this is more of a strategy. There's no real one-click solution that's going to be perfect. You have to kind of get in there manually. But things like this, I would come back in and recreate. And I'm going to go ahead and show you that stuff now. Now, also keep in mind with the white toner printing, you're going to have solid pixels here. You're not going to want to. You're not going to want any transparent pixels, because you're going to run into some problems. I'll show you how to solve that later. But let's go ahead and get this picture fixed up here and finalized. So what I would do here is, for something like this, I would just come in with my pen tool and either cut this thing out if I could, or just recreate it. And for me, this is pretty simple. I would just create with my pen tool, click the top and bottom of this line, make sure that it's white, and give it some thickness. And I'll make it, I'll make it red for now. Actually, let's make the stroke red so you can see what I'm doing. Make the stroke red, come into the stroke settings, and in the pressure settings, it's got a curve that you can play with. So I'm going to drag these down to the bottom, click in the center, and raise that up so that I get a nice little taper. Okay, and whoops. And then I'm going to use my move tool just to kind of get it in position. And then I'm going to hit edit, copy, edit, paste. And I can rotate this one in this direction. And really all this is doing is creating a starburst. It's kind of a repeating thing. So with these two now, with this cross, I'm going to group them. I'm going to hit Control J to duplicate. Hold down Control, center drag them until I get to the size of these two here, and then rotate these. And rinse and repeat. So I'm going to duplicate. And that's what's cool about Affinity is if you duplicate it, it remembers your previous settings. So that's actually fine. All I have to do is really come back in. I'm going to ungroup them all. And while they're selected, switch to my pen tool so that I get access to these settings. Turn off the fill. Come into the stroke and change the color to white. All right, and then while they're still all selected, hit Control G to group them again. Now that I have that, I can just drag right over here. Try to get it centered. I can rotate, try to match as close as I can. And that's okay there. This gets cut off over here, so let's just drag one over here. And the way that I'm dragging is when I click, I hold down Alt, and if I do that in Affinity, once I hit Alt and drag it away, I can release and I get a duplicate. So let's go back here and drag this and get it as close as we can. You know, it's a starburst, so the more little lines and stuff like that, it's just going to look like it's shimmering more, so it's not too big of a deal. And then maybe in this gap right here, I might just add one here. And let's just rotate it a little bit more. Maybe scale it down. It's good there. Looks like there was one over here. Pop that in there. Okay, cool. We've got some nice shimmers going on. I'm going to grab all those guys in the layers, group them, and then grab the artwork and group it. And then the last thing that we want to do is add the backdrop. So let's go ahead and click a new pixel layer, and then what I'm going to do is just grab one of these default circular brushes here. It's a hard round. I'm just going to knock the spacing up, knock the size down so I can see the spacing a bit more. And then in, I think it's dynamics is where we're going to want to play around. So in dynamics, let's do a little bit of, I don't want pressure, I want random size jitter. So you'll see that we'll get some different sizing. And then down here I want some scatter, and in both of these I'm going to select random for the scatter on the Y and the X axis. So we'll scatter on the X, we'll scatter on the Y. Maybe even some shake jitter if you want. Yeah, we'll put a little bit in there. And then let's do a little bit of a hue jitter. So this will get us some random coloring too. You don't have to do that one if you don't want to. And that's pretty good. I think that's pretty much it for now. So let's hit close on that brush, and you can see we've got a little brush that we can start painting with. I'm going to switch to the brush tool by hitting B. And then the open brackets, close brackets allow me to scale my brush up and down, so now we can decide on the dot size we want initially. And then in this artwork, let's go ahead and start targeting. I'm going to use this eyedropper up here in the swatches panel to target a color that I want. Select this blue here, release, and then make sure I apply it to my brush. And then I can start kind of clicking in. And now you can see with the hue jitter that we had in the dynamic setting, this hue jitter, we get lots of fun kind of colors to play with, but make sure your brush is scaled at the appropriate size, and just kind of start hitting it in different areas. And as long as that layer's behind the picture one, you're good to go. And then just, start hopping around. I'm going to come up here, target this color, and I actually can see up here there was a missing shimmer. We can add that in after, but let's go ahead and get these colors in. Maybe do a little trail from my butterflies. Okay, that's pretty cool there. And like I said, let's add that final shimmer in. So with this one, I'm going to Alt and then click and drag. Move it up to the top because I see, looks like a starburst there. Maybe rotate it so we don't obstruct the text too much. And as you can see, that's pretty much it as far as artwork. So I'm going to grab these two, group them, then I'm going to duplicate, come in here, rasterize, to finalize it basically. And then the last step I just want to show you, I do have an action set that you can do some rasterization with. So I'm going to head over to my library. It's the Pixel Mosh Pit Rasterization. It's got many different methods. You have the round dot, you have lines at a 22 angle, a 0 angle, and then you have cosine at a 22 angle. The reason why I picked 22, just like in the screen printing industry, it's just a very good angle for the human eye that helps blend easier. Yeah, it's just it's kind of common practice. So what I'm going to do here is with this layer selected, and I'm going to make sure it's the only one turned on. That's how this action set works. Is I'm going to have that, make sure that layer's clicked, and then all I have to do is hit this. Let's do 18, and it's going to run through and take all the transparent pixels and make them solid pixels that you can work with. In the future, I mean, for text, I probably wouldn't do it to it. I would probably recreate all that stuff, but it's a quick fix and does the rasterization for you. And basically, you're ready to go to print with 100% opaque pixels. Yeah, so I hope you took something away from this today. If you're interested in the rasterization kit here, it'll be in a link in the description box below. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment. Reach out to me on Facebook, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.